Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the USS Valiant, watching the stars through the massive viewing window. The ship hummed quietly around him as it moved through deep space on patrol duty. Everything seemed normal until the communications panel started flashing red. Lieutenant Amy Carter looked up from her station with concern. "Sir, we're getting something strange on the long-range sensors. It's not one of our signals." Morrison walked over to her station. "What kind of signal?" "It's coming from the Kepler system, about 3 light-years away. The pattern is weird. It keeps repeating the same sequence over and over." Carter played the signal through the speakers. Strange clicks and beeps filled the bridge. The sound made Morrison's skin crawl. There was something desperate about it, like someone crying for help. "Get Dr. Rodriguez up here. We need someone who knows about alien languages." 20 minutes later, Dr. Lisa Rodriguez arrived on the bridge. She was a small woman with dark hair and quick eyes. She had been the one who helped humans talk to aliens for the first time. "What do we have, Admiral?" Carter played the signal. Again, Rodriguez listened carefully, her face growing more serious with each repetition. "This is a distress signal." "I'm sure of it. The pattern matches what we call a universal emergency code." "Can you understand what they're saying?" Morrison asked. Rodriguez shook her head. "Not yet. But I know someone who might help us." She turned to Carter. "Contact Captain Taylor on the Pioneer. He's in this sector and he knows the Zilani language." The main screen flickered to life, showing Captain Ben Taylor's face. He was a tall man with gray hair and kind eyes. "Admiral Morrison, good to see you. What can I do for you?" "We need your help with a signal, Ben. It's coming from Kepler, and we think it might be from your friends, the Zilani." Taylor's expression changed immediately. "The Zilani? Let me hear it." Carter played the signal again. Taylor listened, and his face went pale. "Oh no, this is bad, very bad. What are they saying?" Morrison asked. Taylor took a deep breath. "They're saying that the hunters have found them. Their worlds are burning. They're telling anyone who hears this message not to come. They want us to save ourselves." The bridge fell silent. Everyone had heard stories about the hunters from the Zilani. They were ancient predators who moved through the galaxy eating entire civilizations. The Zilani had warned humans to stay quiet and hidden. "Are you sure that's what they're saying?" Rodriguez asked. Taylor nodded. "I spent 6 months with the Zilani. They taught me their language. This message is from their military command. They're dying, and they don't want anyone else to die trying to help them." Morrison felt a cold weight in his stomach. The Zilani had been the first aliens to be kind to humans. When Captain Taylor had found their world by accident, they could have killed him. Instead, they had welcomed him like a friend. They had shared their technology and their knowledge. They had even warned humans about the dangers in the galaxy. "How long ago was this message sent?" Morrison asked. Carter checked her instruments. "Based on the signal strength and distance, I'd say about 18 hours ago." "Sir," said Commander Steve Walsh, Morrison's second in command, "we need to think about this carefully. The Zilani told us to stay hidden for a reason. These hunters have been destroying civilizations for thousands of years." Morrison stared at the stars. He remembered meeting the Zilani ambassador, a gentle being named Kethva. The alien had been fascinated by human culture and had spent hours asking questions about Earth. The Zilani had given humans star maps and warned them about dangerous areas of space. They had been true friends? "Get me Earth Command," Morrison said finally. The communication took several minutes to connect across the light years. When it did, President Helen Murphy appeared on the screen. She was a stern woman with silver hair who had led humanity through many crises. "Admiral Morrison, we've been monitoring the situation. We know about the signal. Madam President, we need to make a decision. The Zilani are in trouble." Defense Secretary Carl Brooks appeared next to the president. He was a large man with a military background. "Admiral, we've been discussing this. The risk is enormous. If we go to help the Zilani, we might lead these hunters back to Earth. But if we don't help, we lose our first alien friends," Morrison replied. "The Zilani didn't have to help us. They could have ignored us or even attacked us when we found their world. Instead, they welcomed us. President Murphy looked thoughtful. What's the military situation? Do we even have enough ships to make a difference? Brooks answered, we have 12 heavy cruisers, 40 destroyers, and about 200 support ships. It's the largest fleet we've ever built, but we don't know how it compares to these hunters. The Zilani have advanced technology, Taylor added from his ship. If they're losing, these hunters must be incredibly powerful. Morrison could see the doubt in everyone's faces. It would be safer to stay hidden. Humanity could continue to grow and build in secret, but something inside him rebelled against the idea of abandoning friends. I keep thinking about something, Morrison said. The Zilani told us that humans are different from other species. They said we come from what they call a death world. Earth is more dangerous than most planets. We evolved to be tough and to fight. That's true, Rodriguez said. The Zilani were amazed by human stories about our history. They couldn't believe we survived ice ages, asteroid impacts, and constant wars. Walsh stepped forward. Sir, with respect, being tough doesn't mean we can fight ancient predators who destroy entire civilizations? Morrison turned to look at his crew. These men and women had followed him through dangerous missions before. They had explored unknown systems and faced pirates and hostile environments. They had never backed down from a challenge. Maybe not, Morrison said. But we've never run from a fight when our friends needed help. The Zilani are dying because they tried to protect us and other young species. They could have joined these hunters, but they chose to resist. The bridge was quiet except for the hum of the ship's engines. Everyone was thinking about the choice they faced. President Murphy spoke first. Admiral, this decision is too important for one person to make. But you're the one who has to carry it out. What do you recommend? Morrison looked at the stars one more time. Somewhere out there, his friends were fighting and dying. They had asked him to stay away, to save himself. But that wasn't the human way. We don't abandon our friends, he said. Firmly. Begin fleet mobilization. We're going to Kepler. The president nodded slowly. God help us all. You have authorization to proceed. As the communication ended, Morrison turned to his crew. You heard the orders. Contact all human ships in the sector. Tell them to prepare for combat operations. We're going to show these hunters what happens when they mess with our friends. The bridge erupted into activity as officers began sending messages across human space. The word spread quickly. Humanity was going to war. Image description for Leonardo. AI, a futuristic spaceship bridge with large viewing windows showing stars in space. A tall military officer in a dark blue uniform stands looking out at the stars while crew members work at glowing control panels. The scene has dramatic lighting with blue and white colors. The atmosphere is tense and serious. In the background, other crew members are visible at their stations with holographic displays showing star maps and alien signals. The message went out across human space like wildfire. Every ship, every station, every colony received the same urgent call. Humanity was preparing for war on Mars. The giant shipyards that had built peaceful exploration vessels suddenly became weapons factories. Tony Davis, the chief of the main shipyard, stood in his office looking down at the massive construction bays. Workers moved like ants around half-finished ships, welding armor plates and installing weapon systems. How long do we have? Asked Linda Foster, captain of the mining ship Hercules. Her ship was being fitted with military-grade shields and plasma cannons. Admiral Morrison wants the fleet ready in 72 hours, Davis replied, wiping sweat from his forehead. We're working around the clock, but some of these civilian ships were never meant to carry weapons. Foster nodded. She had been hauling ore from the asteroid belt for 15 years. Now her ship was being turned into a warship. My crew doesn't know anything about fighting. None of us do, Davis said, but we'll learn fast. Across the shipyard, other civilian vessels were being converted. Luxury liners became troop transports. Cargo haulers received missile launchers. Even small personal ships were being fitted with whatever weapons could be found back on Earth. Colonel Rick Stone was dealing with an even bigger challenge. He stood in front of 5,000 volunteers in a training facility in Colorado. These men and women had answered the call to form humanity's first Space Marine Corps. "Listen up," Stone shouted. "I know most of you have never been in combat, but you have something special. You come from Earth?" The volunteers looked confused. Stone continued, "Other species think we're crazy. They call Earth a death world because it's so dangerous. We have hurricanes, earthquakes, volcanoes, and predators that hunt us. Most alien worlds are peaceful gardens compared to Earth." A young woman raised her hand. "Sir, how does that help us fight these hunters?" Stone smiled grimly. "Because we're already survivors. Every human alive today comes from a long line of people who refuse to give up. When other species face extinction, they surrender. When humans face extinction, we fight harder." He pulled up a holographic display showing Earth's history. "We survived ice ages that should have killed us. We survived asteroid impacts and supervolcano eruptions. We survived plagues and wars and disasters that would have ended most species." The volunteers began to understand. They weren't just soldiers. They were the products of millions of years of evolution on a world that tried to kill them every day. "The Zilani told us that humans are different," Stone continued. "We hunt in packs, we adapt to anything, we never stop fighting. That's our advantage." Meanwhile, Dr. Maria Santos was working with a team of scientists to understand their enemy. In her lab on Luna Station, she studied every piece of information the Zilani had shared about the hunters. "What do we know about them?" asked her assistant. Dr. Peter Kim. Santos pulled up ancient Zilani records. "They're old. Very old. They've been moving through the galaxy for thousands of years, consuming entire civilizations. They don't conquer worlds. They eat them." "Eat them?" "Their ships are alive. They're like giant organisms that feed on matter and energy. When they finish with a world, there's nothing left but empty space." Kim shuddered. "How do they fight?" "The Zilani records show they adapt quickly. Their ships can change shape and develop new weapons during battle. They learn from every attack and become stronger." Santos stared at the data. "But there's something interesting here. The records show that the hunters have conquered hundreds of species, but they've never faced anything like humans." "What do you mean?" "Every species they've fought has eventually surrendered when facing total destruction. The hunters expect this. They're used to civilizations giving up when the situation becomes hopeless." Kim began to understand. "But humans don't surrender." "Exactly. We get more stubborn when things get bad. It's something the hunters have never encountered." Across the solar system, the human fleet was gathering. Ships arrived from every corner of human space. The heavy cruiser Defiant, commanded by Captain Jane Miller, had come from the outer colonies. The destroyer Thunderbolt, under Captain Nancy Price, had been patrolling the trade routes. Admiral Morrison stood on the bridge of the Valiant, watching the fleet assemble. It was an impressive sight. 12 heavy cruisers formed the core of the fleet, their hulls bristling with weapons. 40 destroyers provided escort and support. Behind them, 200 support ships carried supplies, troops, and equipment. "It's beautiful," said Commander Walsh, standing beside him. Morrison nodded. "It's also the most dangerous thing humanity has ever attempted." Communications Officer Carter looked up from her station. "Sir, we're getting reports from all across the fleet. Everyone's ready." Just then, Dr. Rodriguez arrived on the bridge with urgent news. "Admiral, we've been trying to contact the Kepler system for the past day. We're getting nothing." "What do you mean, nothing?" "Complete radio silence. No signals, no communications. Nothing. It's like the entire system has gone dark." Morrison felt a chill run down his spine. "How long since the last signal?" "About 6 hours ago. We detected what looked like massive energy discharges, then silence. The bridge fell quiet." Everyone understood what this meant. The hunters had probably finished destroying the Zilani worlds while the human fleet was still preparing. "Sir," said Lieutenant Commander Dan Clark, the fleet's tactical officer, Long-range sensors are picking up something else. There are massive ships moving through the Kepler system. They are huge, bigger than anything we've ever seen. Morrison stared at the tactical display. The enemy ships appeared as red dots on the screen, but the computer estimated they were each several kilometers long. How many? He asked. At least 50 large vessels, plus hundreds of smaller ones. They're moving between the planets, probably finishing off any survivors. The news hit the bridge like a physical blow. They might already be too late to save the Zilani. But Morrison remembered something Colonel Stone had said during their planning session. Humans don't fight just to win. We fight because it's the right thing to do. Signal the fleet, Morrison said. All ships prepare for hyperspace jump. We're going to Kepler. Sir, Walsh said quietly, we might be flying into a trap. The hunters will know we're coming. Morrison looked at his old friend. Maybe, but the Zilani would have come for us. They risked everything to warn us about the hunters when they could have stayed hidden. Now it's our turn. The fleet began to move. One by one, the ships activated their hyperspace engines. The space around them shimmered and twisted as they prepared to jump across the light years. All ships report ready, Carter announced. Morrison took a deep breath. In a few minutes, they would be in the Kepler system, facing an enemy that had destroyed civilizations for millennia. The smart thing would be to turn around and run back to Earth, but that wasn't what humans did. Execute jump, he ordered. The stars stretched into lines of light as the human fleet disappeared into hyperspace. Behind them, Earth's population waited and prayed. Ahead of them, an ancient evil was about to learn what happened when it threatened humanity's friends. In the darkness between stars, the fleet traveled toward its destiny. Every ship carried men and women who had grown up on a world that had tried to kill them since birth. They were scared, but they were also determined. They were going to show the galaxy what Deathworlders could do. The hunters had never faced anything like humanity. They were about to learn why Earth was called a Deathworld. Image. Description for Leonardo AI. A massive space shipyard with multiple levels showing civilian ships being converted into warships. Workers in spacesuits are welding armor plates and installing weapon systems on mining ships and cargo vessels. The scene has industrial lighting with sparks flying from welding work. In the background, large viewing windows show space and other ships under construction. The atmosphere is busy and urgent, with people working frantically to prepare for war. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler system, and what they saw made everyone's blood run cold. The beautiful blue-green world that Captain Taylor had described was now a burning ball of orange and red. Massive fires covered entire continents, and the oceans were boiling. "Dear God," whispered Commander Walsh, staring at the main screen. Admiral Morrison felt sick. The Zilani homeworld, once home to billions of peaceful beings, was dying. What about the other planets? Lieutenant Carter checked her sensors. 3 of the 7 colony worlds are completely dark. No energy signatures, no life signs. It's like they never existed. On the tactical display, the 4th colony world showed active bombardment. Huge ships, unlike anything in human databases, were firing beams of energy down at the planet's surface. The weapons didn't just destroy buildings. They seemed to eat the very ground itself. "Sir," said Lieutenant Commander Clark, "I'm reading massive biosignatures from those ships. They're not machines, they're alive." Morrison moved closer to the tactical station. The enemy vessels were enormous, each one several kilometers long. They looked like giant sea creatures with tentacles and organic hulls that pulsed with their own light. "How many?" Morrison asked. 53 large ships, plus hundreds of smaller ones. They're spread across the system, finishing off the remaining colonies. Just then, the communications array crackled to life. A weak signal came through, speaking in the Zilani language. Dr. Rodriguez quickly translated. "It's from the 4th colony. They're saying their shields are failing. They have maybe an hour before the end." Morrison made his decision. All ships, battle stations, were going in. The human fleet moved toward the 4th colony world. As they approached, the hunter ships detected them. The massive bio-vessels began to turn away from the planet, their tentacles writhing as they prepared for battle. Commander Alex Rivera, piloting the fast reconnaissance ship Swift Arrow, was the first to get close to the enemy. "Admiral, these things are incredible. Their hulls are changing as I watch. They're adapting to our sensor scans." "What do you mean?" Morrison asked. "They're growing thicker armor where our targeting systems are focused. It's like they can feel our weapons locking onto them." The first hunter ship opened fire. A beam of green energy lanced out toward the destroyer Thunderbolt. Captain Nancy Price managed to dodge, but the beam followed her ship, bending through space like a living thing. "Evasive maneuvers!" Price shouted to her crew. The beam finally missed, but it had been close. "All ships, open fire," Morrison ordered. The human fleet unleashed everything they had. Plasma cannons, laser batteries, and missile launchers fired at the hunter ships. The weapons hit their targets, but the damage was less than expected. The organic hulls absorbed much of the energy and began healing immediately. "Energy weapons are barely scratching them," reported Captain Miller from the heavy cruiser Defiant. "Recommend switching to kinetic weapons," Morrison nodded. "All ships use railguns and solid projectiles. Let's see how they handle good old-fashioned metal." The change in tactics was immediate. The railgun slugs and missile warheads designed to punch through armor were much more effective against the hunter ships. Holes appeared in their hulls, and strange fluid leaked out into space, but the hunters were learning. Their ships began to change shape, becoming thinner and more flexible. They moved like snakes through space, making them harder to hit. "They're adapting to our tactics," Clark observed. "Every time we hit them, they get better at avoiding the same attack." Captain Don Clark, commanding the destroyer Vanguard, had an idea. "All ships, this is Vanguard. Stop firing in formation. We need to be unpredictable." The human fleet broke apart, each ship attacking from a different angle. Instead of the organized battle lines that most species used, the humans began to swarm around the hunter ships like angry bees. This confused the hunters. Their hive-mind coordination was designed to fight organized opponents. The chaotic human attack pattern was something they had never encountered. "It's working," Rivera reported from his scout ship. "They're having trouble targeting us when we fight like this." But the hunters had their own advantages. One of the massive bioships extended tentacles toward the destroyer Phoenix. The tentacles wrapped around the human ship and began to squeeze. "Phoenix is caught," Carter reported. "They're being crushed." Captain Bob Turner, commanding the Phoenix, made a desperate decision. "All ships, this is Phoenix. We're going to ram them. Tell my family I died fighting." The Phoenix activated its engines at full power and drove itself into the hunter ship's main body. The explosion was massive, destroying both vessels and sending shockwaves through the battle. "Phoenix is gone," Carter said quietly. Morrison felt the loss of every crew member, but he couldn't stop now. Phoenix's sacrifice opened a hole in their formation. "All ships, concentrate fire on the damaged hunter vessel." The human fleet focused their attacks on the wounded bioship. Railgun slugs and missiles tore through its healing hull faster than it could repair itself. Finally, the massive creature convulsed and died, its lights fading as it drifted lifeless through space. "First hunter ship destroyed," Clark announced. The victory sent a shock through the hunter fleet. For a moment, they seemed confused, as if they couldn't believe one of their own had been killed. Colonel Stone, watching from the Marine transport ship Warrior, saw an opportunity. "Admiral, that damaged ship is still mostly intact. Request permission." "To board it. Boarding action?" Morrison considered it. "Rick, these aren't normal ships. They're alive." "Exactly. Which means they might have organs we can damage from the inside." Morrison nodded. "Permission granted, but be careful." Stone's Marines loaded into assault pods and launched toward the dying hunter ship. The pods punched through the organic hull, and the Marines found themselves inside a nightmare. The corridors were like the inside of a giant animal with walls that pulsed and breathed. "This is disgusting," said Sergeant Kevin Brown, leading the first squad. The floor was squishy under their boots, and strange fluids dripped from the ceiling. Stay focused, Stone ordered. Find the command center or whatever controls this thing. The Marines moved through the ship, fighting past defensive organisms that tried to stop them. These weren't crew members, but parts of the ship itself that had been created to repel boarders. Sir, Brown called out, I think I found something important. Stone rushed to his position. They had found a large chamber filled with pulsing organs and strange neural networks. This might be the brain. How do we kill it? Asked another Marine. Stone smiled grimly. Same way we kill everything else, with explosives. The Marines placed demolition charges throughout the chamber. As they prepared to leave, Stone noticed something important. The hunter ship was trying to heal itself, but it was struggling. The random damage from the human attacks was too chaotic for it to handle. All Marines, back to the pods, Stone ordered. This thing is about to die. The Marines evacuated just as the explosives detonated. The hunter ship convulsed one final time and then went completely dark. Second hunter ship destroyed, Clark reported. The remaining hunter ships suddenly pulled back from the battle. For the first time in thousands of years, they had encountered an enemy that not only fought back, but actually killed their vessels. Morrison watched them retreat. They're regrouping, but we hurt them. Sir, Carter interrupted, we're getting a signal from the planet. The Zilani survivors are trying to contact us. A weak voice came through the speakers, speaking in accented English. Human ships. This is Commander Zethka of the Zilani Defense Force. We cannot believe you came. We don't abandon our friends, Morrison replied. What's your situation? We have maybe 10,000 survivors in underground shelters. The hunters destroyed everything else. We thought we were going to die alone. Not today, Morrison said firmly. We're going to get you out of there. The battle was far from over. The hunter ships were regrouping, probably calling for reinforcements. But for the first time in the battle, Morrison felt hope. The hunters could be hurt. They could be killed. And now the galaxy would see what happened when you threatened humanity's friends. The Deathworlders had come to fight. And they were just getting started. Image description for Leonardo AI. A massive space battle scene with organic, alien ships that look like giant sea creatures with tentacles fighting against human warships. The alien vessels have pulsing bioluminescent hulls and are firing green energy beams. Human ships are smaller but more numerous, firing bright projectiles and missiles. In the background, a burning planet with orange and red surface can be seen. The scene has dramatic lighting with explosions and energy beams, creating a chaotic but epic space combat atmosphere. News of the human victory spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Species that had been hiding in fear for generations suddenly found hope. The mighty hunters, who had seemed unstoppable for thousands of years, had been hurt by a young species. From a death world, Commander Zethka and the surviving Zilani were brought aboard the human fleet. The alien commander was tall and thin, with blue skin and large eyes that showed both gratitude and amazement. We cannot believe what you have done, Zethka said to Admiral Morrison. In all our history, no one has ever destroyed a hunter ship. We destroyed 2, Morrison replied. And we're just getting started. Dr. Rodriguez was working with Zethka to contact other species. The communications networks are coming alive, she reported. Dozens of civilizations are reaching out to us. The first to respond were the crystalline Vorthan. Their ships looked like flying diamonds, beautiful but deadly. Next came the gas-dwelling Nethys, whose vessels were like floating clouds with metal cores. Even the machine intelligence called the Corpus sent representatives. They all want to join the fight, Rodriguez explained. For the first time in millennia, someone has shown that the hunters can be beaten. But Morrison knew the real test was still coming. Long-range sensors showed massive hunter fleets moving toward the Kepler system. The first battle had been just a small part of their forces. Dr. Santos made an important discovery while studying the wreckage of the destroyed hunter ships. She called Morrison to her temporary lab on the Valiant. Admiral, I found something. Incredible, she said, pointing to organic samples under her microscope. These hunter ships aren't just alive. They're a collection of absorbed life forms. What do you mean? Every species they've conquered becomes part of them. Look at this. She showed him genetic sequences on her computer. I can identify DNA from at least 20 different species in this sample. The hunters don't just kill civilizations. They absorb them. Morrison stared at the data. So, every hunter ship contains the knowledge and biology of the species they've destroyed. Exactly. That's how they adapt so quickly. They have the combined experience of thousands of civilizations. But there's something else. Santos pulled up another display. They've never absorbed a Deathworld species. Every civilization they've conquered came from peaceful garden worlds. They have no experience with species like us. What makes us so different? Look at this comparison. Santos showed him brain scans from different species. Most aliens have brains designed for cooperation and peaceful problem solving. Human brains are different. We evolved to hunt, to fight, to survive impossible situations. Morrison began to understand. So when they try to absorb human thoughts, it would be like poison to their collective consciousness. They're used to adding peaceful, logical minds to their network. Human thoughts would be chaotic, aggressive, unpredictable. This gave Morrison an idea, but before he could develop it further, alarms began sounding throughout the fleet. "Admiral, to the bridge," came Carter's voice over the intercom. "We have incoming hunter reinforcements." Morrison rushed to the bridge to find chaos. The tactical display showed hundreds of red dots approaching the system. "How many?" he asked. "Over 300 large ships, plus thousands of smaller ones," Clark reported. "It's the largest hunter fleet anyone has ever seen." The human fleet had grown to include ships from 6 different species, but they were still vastly outnumbered. Morrison knew they couldn't win a direct fight. "We need to choose our battleground," he said. "Set course for the asteroid belt around Kepler 442b. If we're going to make a stand, let's do it somewhere that gives us an advantage." The combined fleet moved toward the asteroid field. Captain Jane Miller, commanding the heavy cruiser Defiant, had studied the asteroid belt carefully. "Admiral, I have an idea about how to use these rocks." "I'm listening." "My ship has a mining laser designed to cut through asteroids. If we position ourselves correctly, we could use the asteroids as weapons." Morrison smiled. This was exactly the kind of creative thinking that separated humans from other species. "Do it." The fleet took position among the asteroids. When the hunter ships arrived, they found their enemies scattered among thousands of floating rocks. The hunters tried their usual tactic of forming organized battle lines, but the asteroids made that impossible. Major Chris Wright led the first attack. His assault ships darted between the asteroids, firing at the hunter vessels and then disappearing behind the rocks. The hunters couldn't use their adaptive abilities effectively because they never knew where the next attack would come from. "This is working," Wright reported. "They can't adapt to attacks they can't predict." Captain Miller put her plan into action. She positioned the Defiant behind a large asteroid and used her mining laser to bore a hole completely through it. Then she used the ship's tractor beam to push the hollowed asteroid toward a hunter vessel. The asteroid hit the bioship at tremendous speed, punching through its hull like a bullet. The hunter ship convulsed and died, killed by a simple rock. "Traveling very fast. Brilliant," Morrison exclaimed. All ships with mining equipment follow Miller's example. The battle became unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Human ships turned asteroids into kinetic weapons while their alien allies provided covering fire. The Vorthan ships created crystal formations that confused hunter sensors. The Nethys used their gas form abilities to slip through hunter defenses, but the real breakthrough came when Sergeant Kevin Brown made a discovery during another boarding action. His Marines had fought their way into a hunter command ship and found something unexpected. "Colonel Stone, you need to see this," Brown called over the radio. Stone joined him in what appeared to be a control center. But instead of alien technology, they found something horrifying. Thousands of beings from different species were connected to the ship's neural network. Their minds linked to the Hunter Collective. They're still alive, Stone realized. The Hunters don't just absorb dead civilizations. They keep the survivors. As part of their collective consciousness, can we free them? Brown asked. Stone studied the connections. Maybe, but it would probably kill the ship. Sir, if these people have been trapped in this thing for thousands of years, maybe death would be a mercy. Stone made the decision. Set charges on the neural connections. We're going to free these people. As the Marines worked, Stone noticed something important. Some of the connected beings were trying to communicate. Their eyes showed awareness and desperate hope. They know we're here, Stone said. They want us to do this. The explosives detonated, severing the neural connections. The freed beings died instantly, but their faces showed peace for the first time in millennia. The Hunter ship, suddenly losing thousands of absorbed minds, began to convulse and shut down. Another one down, Stone reported. But Admiral, I think, we found their weakness. What is it? They depend on their collective consciousness. If we can disrupt that, we can stop them. Morrison felt pieces of a plan falling into place. The Hunters' greatest strength was also their weakness. They had never faced a species whose thoughts could poison their collective mind. All ships, focus fire on the command vessels, Morrison ordered. We're not just fighting ships. We're fighting their collective consciousness. The battle raged through the asteroid field. Human creativity and alien cooperation began to overwhelm the Hunter forces. For every ship they lost, the humans found new ways to fight. They used asteroids as shields, turned mining equipment into weapons, and fought with a desperate creativity that only Deathworlders possessed. As the Hunter fleet began to retreat, Morrison knew they had won more than just a battle. They had shown the galaxy that the ancient terror could be defeated, but long-range sensors were detecting something new. An even larger Hunter fleet was approaching, this one led by ships bigger than anything they had seen before. The real war was just beginning. Image. Description for Leonardo AI. A chaotic space battle in an asteroid field with human ships using mining lasers to bore holes through asteroids and launch them as projectile weapons at massive organic alien vessels. The scene shows a large human cruiser firing a bright blue mining beam through a rocky asteroid while smaller ships dart between the floating rocks. Crystalline, diamond-shaped ships and cloud-like vessels fight alongside the humans. The lighting is dramatic with laser beams, explosions, and the glow from various alien technologies creating a spectacular battlefield among the asteroids. The largest Hunter fleet in galactic history emerged from hyperspace like a dark cloud covering the stars. Admiral Morrison stood on the bridge of the Valiant, watching the tactical display with growing concern. Over 1,000 Hunter ships filled the screen, led by vessels so massive they dwarfed planets. "Dear God," whispered Commander Walsh. "How are we supposed to fight that?" Morrison looked around his bridge. His crew was scared, but they hadn't given up. That was the difference between humans and other species. When things looked impossible, humans got stubborn. "Signal all ships," Morrison said. "This is it, the final battle. We're not just fighting for the Kepler system anymore. We're fighting for the future of the galaxy." The combined fleet had grown to include 17 different species, but they were still vastly outnumbered. Dr. Santos had been working around the clock on the plan they had discussed. She contacted Morrison from her lab. "Admiral, I think I know how to poison their collective consciousness," she said. "But it's dangerous," explain. "We need to get a human mind directly connected to their neural network. If human thoughts are toxic to their collective, we could cause the entire fleet to shut down." Morrison understood immediately. "You're talking about a suicide mission." "Not necessarily. If we can disrupt their network fast enough, the person might survive. But the risk is enormous." Before Morrison could respond, the Hunter fleet opened fire. Thousands of green energy beams lanced through space toward the Allied ships. The battle began with devastating intensity. Captain Bob Turner, commanding the courier ship Mercury, was one of the first to be hit. His ship was caught between two hunter beams and began to break apart. "This is Mercury," Turner transmitted. "We're going down, but we're taking one of them with us." Turner aimed his dying ship at the largest hunter vessel he could see and activated his engines at full power. The small courier ship slammed into the bioship's hull and exploded, tearing a massive hole in the creature's side. "This is what Deathworlders do," were Turner's final words. His sacrifice inspired the entire fleet. Ships from every species began making desperate attacks, using their own unique abilities to fight the ancient enemy. The crystalline Vorthan ships formed geometric patterns that focused their energy, weapons into devastating beams. The gas-dwelling Nethi ships flowed like liquid through the hunter formations, attacking from impossible angles. The machine intelligence corpus vessels calculated perfect attack patterns and shared them with their allies, but the hunters were adapting. Their bioships began to change shape faster than ever before, developing new weapons and defenses during the battle itself. "They're learning from every attack," reported Lieutenant Commander Clark. "At this rate, they'll become impossible to hurt." Morrison knew they were running out of time. "Dr. Santos, how long do you need to prepare your plan?" "Give me 10 minutes to set up the neural interface." "You have it, all ships. Protect the Valiant. We're about to try something crazy." Colonel Stone had been listening to the conversation. "Admiral, I volunteer for the neural connection. I've been inside their ships. I know how they think." "Rick, this could kill you." "Sir, I've been preparing for this my whole life. Let me do this." Morrison looked at his old friend. Stone had always been the first to volunteer for dangerous missions. "Do it." Stone rushed to Dr. Santos's lab while the battle raged around them. She had rigged a neural interface using captured hunter biotechnology. It looked like a helmet made of living tissue. "This will connect your mind directly to their network," Santos explained. "Once you're in, think about everything that makes humans different. Our violence, our stubbornness, our refusal to give up." Stone put on the helmet. "What about getting out?" "I'll monitor your vital signs. When I see the network starting to collapse, I'll pull you out." Stone nodded and activated the device. Immediately, his consciousness was pulled into the hunter collective. He found himself in a vast mental space filled with millions of absorbed minds from conquered civilizations. The experience was overwhelming. He could feel the thoughts of species that had been dead for thousands of years, all of them. Peaceful, logical, and resigned to their fate. They had all accepted death when it became inevitable, but Stone was human. He brought with him memories of Earth's violent history, of humans who fought impossible odds and won. He thought about soldiers who charged machine gun nests, explorers who sailed into unknown oceans, and pioneers who crossed deadly continents. The effect on the hunter network was immediate. The collective consciousness began to convulse as Stone's chaotic, aggressive thoughts spread through their system like a virus. The absorbed minds, exposed to human determination for the first time, began to remember what it felt like to fight. "Back, it's working," Santos reported to Morrison. "The hunter ships are starting to malfunction." Across the battlefield, the massive bioships began to writhe in pain. Their coordinated attacks fell apart as their collective consciousness was torn by conflicting thoughts. Some ships turned on each other, infected by the idea of individual resistance, but Stone was paying a terrible price. His human mind was being battered by the vast collective. "I can't hold on much longer," he transmitted. Morrison made a decision. That went against every military protocol. "Rick, I'm coming in after you." "Admiral, no," Santos protested. "If we lose you both... If we lose Rick, we lose our only chance." Morrison put on a second neural interface. "Get me connected." Morrison's consciousness joined Stone's in the hunter network. Together, the two humans became a storm of chaotic thought that the collective couldn't handle. They brought memories of humanity's greatest battles, their refusal to surrender at Thermopylae, their stand at the Alamo, their defiance during the London Blitz. The hunter collective began to collapse. Thousands of years of absorbed civilizations suddenly remembered what it meant to be free. The peaceful, logical minds that had accepted defeat now burned with human stubbornness. "The flagship is losing control," Clark reported from the bridge. "The entire fleet is turning on itself." But the network was fighting back, trying to crush the human minds that were destroying it. Morrison felt his consciousness being pulled apart. "Rick, we need to get out of here." "Not yet," Stone replied. "I can feel them breaking. Just a little longer." The largest hunter ship, the one commanding the entire fleet, suddenly went dark. Its massive biohull stopped pulsing, and its weapons powered down. Like a signal, every other hunter ship in the fleet began to shut down. "Now!" Santos shouted, pulling both men out of the network. Morrison and Stone collapsed, their minds barely intact after the experience. But they had done it. The hunter fleet was dead in space, their collective consciousness shattered by exposure to human thoughts. "All hunter ships are down," Carter reported. "They're not moving, not firing, not doing anything?" The Allied fleet cautiously approached the massive bioships. They found that the hunters inside were dead, killed when their collective consciousness collapsed. The absorbed minds from thousands of civilizations had finally been freed, Commander Zethka spoke. "For all the allied species. You have done something that we thought was impossible. You have ended the hunter threat forever." Morrison looked out at the stars where the ships of 17 species flew together in victory. "We didn't do it alone. Every species here contributed to this victory. But you showed us it was possible," Zethka replied. "The Deathworlders taught us that sometimes the impossible just takes a little longer." In the months that followed, the galaxy began to heal. The various species formed the Galactic Defense Alliance with humanity as its founding members. The fear that had gripped civilizations for millennia was finally gone on a rebuilt Zelani world. Children from dozens of species played together in gardens that had been regrown from hunter destruction. Morrison watched them and smiled. The galaxy was finally at peace, but deep in space, long-range sensors detected new signals from beyond the galactic rim. Ancient things were stirring, drawn by the collapse of the hunter network. The galaxy's greatest predators were gone, but they had been keeping something even worse at bay. Morrison looked at the sensor reports and sighed. "Well," he said to Colonel Stone, "looks like the Deathworlders have more work to do." Stone grinned despite his exhaustion. "Wouldn't have it any other way, sir." The stars held new dangers, but they also held hope. Humanity had proven that with enough determination, even the impossible could be defeated. Whatever came next, the galaxy would face it together. Image description for Leonardo AI. A massive space battle finale showing the largest hunter bioship. A creature the size of a small moon with pulsing organic hull and tentacles suddenly going dark and lifeless. Around it, hundreds of smaller organic alien vessels are also shutting down with their lights fading. Human and allied ships of various designs surround the dying hunter fleet. In the foreground, the human flagship has a bright glow from its bridge windows. The scene has dramatic lighting with the contrast between the dying organic ships and the victorious allied fleet set against a starfield background.